Hi there. At the behest of a subscriber, we're going to revisit the in-running scalping technique. I've not done this for a while, so this should be fun. The first race today is at 12:05, so we've got another 17 minutes or so to go. So let me take this opportunity just to give you a quick reminder of how this strategy works, and then we'll go on and do a few races by way of an example. Essentially, the technique relies on the use of the liability option here. So if I switch that on, and I'm in simulation mode at the moment, but I will be going live later. If I lay this runner here, you'll see my liability is 100. In other words, the stake, if I pull this up a little bit, the stake of £31 on Brentford Hope is based on the current odds that I chose and the lay stake constructed as a liability. Now here's the important thing with regarding this technique. If you lay another runner, the liability will be the same for that runner, i.e. £100. However, the overall liability for the event is never going to be above 100 because the liability on this runner is reduced by the profit on the other runner and vice versa. And if you go in and add in another selection, you'll see your overall liability reduces still further. So that's what we're going to use as the basis of this strategy. Let me just clear that away by trading out. So we use that in conjunction with the trading option. Now in this case we get the same thing. We'll get £100. Obviously there's going to be a little bit more because of this red here that we've got. But if I lay Brentford Hope again, we have an offset of, in this case, 1 tick. And it's constructed to give us a green up right across the field. And we can do the same with any amount of other runners. Now as long as you only ever have one lay bet on any one runner, your liability will never increase above what this figure is here. So that's the basis of this technique, but we do it in running, where the volatility will hopefully help us get numerous offsets matched. So in terms of configuring Fairbot, you need to have this set as a liability. You need to have your trading offset switched on and whatever offset you prefer. Also, switch to swap mode. Now in swap mode, that allows you now to place bets or lays at a lower place. So for example, you'll see here Castel Gandolfo is sitting up at 11.5. I can specify a few ticks off the front of the market and wait for that to be matched. Now you'll see here I have a fuller kill, so once that reaches 0, that lay will be cancelled automatically by Fairbot. If it gets matched within that, in this case 10 seconds time, all well and good. The trading section will then put in the offset. The offset doesn't have a killer fill to it. It just sits there in the market waiting to be taken. So what essentially happens is in running, we will request odds off the front of the market. Hopefully they will get matched. The offset bet will be placed and hopefully that will get matched. And once that offset bet has been placed, we can then go into that runner again. The important point, as I mentioned earlier, you only want one lay or one active trade on any one runner at a time. Otherwise, your liability within the race will exceed whatever you've specified here. Now with the swap switched on, just in case you're unaware, you'll see how the left hand side has gone pink. For that to happen, you need to make sure you go into the settings here by clicking on the little cogwheel, click on the general tab and make sure you have use custom colours in swap mode switched on. Otherwise it'll still be blue on the left hand side. That will still place lays. Let me just click on OK there. If I just click in here, alright, it's still stuck in a lay, but it's blue, so that might mislead you. So make sure you go into the cog here, onto the general tab, and switch on the custom colours in swap mode option. And you can of course just click on here and change the colours if you so wish. Okay, we're going to sit tight. We'll do this race in running, and we'll see how we get on. But before we do, what I'm going to do is come out of simulation mode. That'll clear all those numbers away. I'm actually going to reduce the stake as well, down to £10. I've got my other machines busy doing something in simulation mode, so it's always beneficial to periodically do stuff live. Otherwise Betfair may end up throttling your API access. But I'm going to cut the lay stake down to £10 simply because, as you're probably aware, I do my commentary on my videos live and off the cuff, and which is why I tend to have my videos done in simulation mode, because it can be something of a distraction in live mode. So I'm going to do this live in any case, but I'm going to reduce the stake to £10, and that'll let you see that you can still do this on relatively small staking values. Okay, I'll pause the video and we'll get back to this race once it's off and running. Okay, we're down at the post. This race will be starting shortly. Before we get involved, however, I want to change my setup here. Since I'm going to be laying all the time, I want to increase the number of odds I have available to me on the lay side. I'm not particularly bothered about the back side. And this gives me the flexibility of going further away from the front of the market. Now, this is not a big money maker. It can be used just to drip feed your bank. So as such, you should only be looking for something like a 5–10% profit. So in this case, with £10, we're only looking for 50 pence to a pound. So I just go in here and just select as many runners as I like. Now, given that my staking is only £10, I wouldn't necessarily get involved in odds that are in double figures, simply because of the minimum bet requirement for Betfair. But what I would do is I would get involved in higher odds once I increased the stake. Now, you can see all my bets have gone. I can get back involved again. I did click on a 15 odds one there, but as I say, I'm doing this live and I'm commenting live, so it is a bit of a distraction at times. Right, you'll see all my lays have gone. I've still got an open trade on Castel Goldonfo, so I don't get involved in him again, but I can go back in and select some of the other runners. Now, generally speaking, you would want to get out round about the halfway mark, give or take. It's really up to you, but the longer you leave it, the more volatile the market becomes, and the danger is that you find yourself getting caught. So I'm going to go in one more time. And there we are, just about up at our 50 pence. So I'm going to get ready to cancel all my open bets. In fact, there they're all going. And I'll just take that as it is. It's near enough 50p. Make sure I've got that across the board. And that's it for this race. Okay, so that's 5% profit made. That's all well and good. Okay, so we just move on to the next race. But before I do so, other things you can play with. Obviously, you can choose how close to the front of the market you want to get involved in. The nearer you are, the more likely your lay is likely to be matched before the killer fill removes that from the market. You can obviously play about with the offset value here. The lower they are, so if you drop that down to 1, your trades are more likely to be matched quicker, allowing you to go back into the market more often. but you won't necessarily make the same level of profit. Conversely, if you increase that, you'll get a better profit per trade, but you won't get as many trades going through in the market. Similarly with the killer frill, you may find in the longer races you might want to increase that, just because certainly if you're entering the market in the first half, you may find that a killer frill of 10 or less, lots of your trades don't get matched because the market isn't moving enough at that stage in the race. So that's another reason why you might find delaying till the midsection of the race, or even indeed the sort of the quarter after halfway round, where the market starts to become a bit more volatile. You might find that useful, but I wouldn't recommend that initially until you're used to the technique. Okay, let's move on to the next race. Okay, we're off and running in the next race, same sort of thing, but this time I'm going to play nearer the front of the market. Now generally if I'm doing that, I would tend to reduce my offset a little bit, but what you should find, of course, is these things get matched at that little bit quicker. So once again, we keep an eye on the unmatched bets, and when the lays have disappeared, we can go back in again on those runners who don't have any back bets outstanding. Now, of course, we're only looking for 2 ticks now, but at any stage during the race, if you feel things aren't working out, or you could do better with a different tick size or whatever, or a different entry point, by all means, go with it. But you can see when you go to a smaller offset and nearer the front, you will get matched much quicker. The danger is, of course, is that anything that's coming in goes through your lay and carries on, and it may be a while before the closing back bet is matched. Okay, so once again we've got 3 runners. We've only got this one really that's free. I could get involved in those 2 as well, although again, what I was saying about the lay stake being a bit too small for that type of thing, but hey ho. So you need to keep an eye on the race progress banner as well, and start thinking about getting out around about halfway. That would be my advice. Once you become a bit more experienced, you can let it run that little bit further. You can see we're coming to our sort of 5% profit target. Plenty of time in this race though, so let's go back in again on those runners that are don't have any lays on them. Now I would normally be listening to the radio, albeit the radio can be 10 to 20 seconds behind, but it does give you an overall impression of the race itself. So that can be useful, but I'm not doing that during the recording of this, just to minimise the distractions more than anything else. Now you'll see we're getting towards the half-time point, and I've actually it's going against me a little bit at this stage. So what I would tend to do is get ready to cancel any unmatched bets, but I'd let this run, but I wouldn't get involved again. I would get ready to cancel and then green up, depending on how things go. So in other words, I'm going to give these other runners that don't have a red on them a chance to make a move, and then I'll get out. But now that I've got to a 10% loss, I think it's time to think about cancelling these and getting out and accepting the fact that I've been talking too much when I should have been concentrating. Right. Yeah, so these two seem to be the ones. Again, I'm not listening to the radio, so I don't really have a proper picture of what's happening. So let's, well, it might be coming round our way. Yeah, let's just take that, just get out for something. Okay, not my best demonstration, but once you hit the halfway point, the main thing to take from that is try not to get involved again, because once you're past that point, things can happen fairly quickly. So what I wanted to do there was essentially not get involved, but just take some time to review my position to see if there was an opportunity to come out. And in actual fact, bomber listing has come through quite well. So we may have actually got more than the minimum amount that we got there, but that's okay. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're off and running at the first race at Sedgefield. I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to go back to 3 offset. I'm going to increase my killer fill to 15 or so, 17 seconds, because I'm going to go in at lower odds. I'm going to ask for lower odds. So by increasing the killer fill, it gives those lays a better opportunity of being matched. But the principle is still the same. We wait till these lays disappear before we go back into the market again. Let me just bring this down a wee bit so we can see more of what's happening. Okay, so we've only got there's only a tiny one on LJEF, so we could theoretically go back in LJEF again. But we'll stick to our principles and just get involved in these ones. So by doing it this way, you can see that we are asking for lower odds, and consequently our stakes that are submitted into the market are that little bit higher. It doesn't make that much difference on a £10 liability, of course, but you can see if you were to increase that, how it could potentially affect your profit. Okay, I'm still waiting for LJEF, that tiny amount on LJEF to get taken. What you can do is just clear that one away, and hopefully that will be matched fairly soon, so that frees that one up, so you can go back in again rather than hanging around on that particular runner. So we're coming up to the halfway point again. Again, we haven't quite made our 5%, but we need to start thinking about whether we want to get out. Now keep in mind, when you've got a killer fill that's been increased, it takes longer for all the lays to disappear, of course. Now we don't have anything else left in the market. We're past halfway. You could go in again. Let's for fun just go in again, just for the sake of the video. And once those are gone, we'll look at getting in. Right, okay, we've hit our profit target, so what I could do is either just hang on, don't get involved again, wait for all these to disappear, wait for the bet on 4-3 to be taken at 5.7, or alternatively I can just cancel and get out. Now again, I've been rabbiting on too long and missed my opportunity, so it looks like I'm going to be taking a small red. 4-3 is coming in. Yeah, I'm going to have to cancel that and come out of here for a poor red, and that's simply because I've been rabbiting on too much rather than concentrating on the trading. This is why I do my videos in simulation mode for the main part. And you'll see that my lay, my green up, has not been taken, which is quite common when you get down to this sort of level. That's it there. So I've guaranteed a £4 loss in there. So that's a very disappointing trade. But again, that was me not concentrating. I had plenty of opportunity of getting out around about the halfway point, which is the main point to take from this video. Okay. Now you can see here, by letting this race run on, 4-3 has drifted quite a bit, and we could easily have made the profit again. So you will find that by trading in the first half of the race, you will get fairly consistent but low level profits. You can make a much bigger difference if you do it in the latter stages of the race, simply because the volatility is so much greater, but the risks are greater as well. And what happened there was I essentially, because I was too busy talking, wound up essentially combining or trying to combine those two elements, and those, generally speaking, don't work together. So make up your mind whether you want to go into the race late or go into the race early. Right, let's move on to the next. Might catch Clonmel. It's already on the go, so we'll miss that. We'll move to Newbury, and I'll come back when that's on the go. But now I look at this race in more depth. This isn't a race to get involved in with a short price favourite down at those sorts of levels. Assuming that it doesn't run badly or clatter a couple of fences, those odds aren't going to change a huge amount. And you're only going to end up with trading on perhaps 3 runners. The benefit with this, of course, is that by laying at those sorts of levels, you have a much bigger stake going in, so potentially you can gain more. Generally speaking, however, you won't see a huge amount of movement, in my opinion. So novice races of this type, when there's such a short price favourite, I tend to avoid. So that's what I'm going to do for this video, and we'll jump ahead to Ludlow. And that looks a bit more reasonable, so I'll be back in 15 minutes. Okay, welcome back. And this one we're going to do something slightly different. I'm going to let the race run and look at getting involved later on. Now to do that, I'm going to reduce the filler kill to 5 seconds or so. Mainly because if I'm getting involved in the second half of the race, say, it's much more volatile. I don't want lots of bets hanging around in the market for too long, unmatched. And I'm also going to increase my offset to 5 seconds. So I'm just going to sit, monitor the market and see how it's going, and then start to get involved when the progress bar is around about here. Now you have to be fairly quick on this, but as I say, it's another option, and I'm going to try not talk whilst I'm doing it. Try not to distract myself this time. But what you should see is, if it's successful, a much higher profit. But it's one of the options you have, one of the variations on a theme that you can do using this technique. The actual technique itself, i.e. laying at and asking for smaller odds with an offset and then repeatedly going in, as long as you only have 1 lay on each horse maximum, you can do that. But the point is, you can enter the market at any time you like. You can change your settings to suit your particular trading style, and so on and so forth. It's really up to you. So it's quite flexible. But generally speaking, of course, it's, as I said earlier, this isn't a big money maker. It's really just a case of using it to slowly build up your bank. Okay, so I'm going to think about getting involved now, but I'm not going to talk too much, so forgive the silence for the moment. Okay, I've gone in enough here, so I'm just going to hover around for a little while and see if this bet gets taken on, and there it is, just as I speak. So that's another option available to you. Wait till the second half of the race. Generally speaking, although it's not overly evident here, given that I'm only using £10 staking levels, you generally speaking will be able to realise a slightly higher profit, but it is really quite risky. For example, if you have a lay on one horse and it hasn't been traded out as yet, and let's say the favourite falls all the odds of all the other runners will come plummeting in, and you may find yourself in all sorts of trouble. Just to give you one basic scenario. Okay, we're going to go on to the next. There's something else I want to show you. Okay, for this one at Sedgefield, I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to first of all increase my filler kill back to 10, reduce my offset back to 3, and we're going to use repeat on success. I'll set that to 3, and let me just put in some bets first and I'll explain what's happening. Okay, when each of these lays goes in, as soon as a offset bet is matched, Fairbot will then repeat that trade and resubmit it at the same lay odds and the same offset, and it will keep doing that on each runner 3 times. So you don't need to continually have to go in and place bets. You have to keep an eye on it though. So you'll see here all the lays have gone, so the only one that's still open for further trades is coup de coeur. So we can still go back in and do the same on other runners. So essentially we're setting up a completely new trading loop with a repeat on success of 3, and they will go in and do the same sort of thing. So you need to be aware of what's happening, because if an offset is not taken, that repeat on success loop is still sitting in the background waiting to submit another trade. So you may find it important or useful to just hover around the cancel all option just in case. So you'll now see that we've got 3 open trades. I can still go back in again, of course, that's no problem at all, and that will set it up. But keeping in mind we're now much further into the race, I've just set up a completely new set of trades on those 2 runners with repeat on success configured. Now in this particular case they've not been taken. Meanwhile the other ones are carrying on looping through the repeat on success. Let's try one more loop. I won't go in any further than that. We'll stick a couple on those 2 Dudley's Bar and Professor Clump and see how we get on. And again, I'm a bit too busy talking and I'm more in the red than I would normally want to be. Again, I'd be looking at getting out at halfway, but I'm going to let this run to see if we get back into some sort of sensible position. But Thank You Blue looks as if it's coming in quite well. It needs to trade out at 4.1, so it needs to double in price. So in all likelihood that's not going to happen. In the meantime, all the others are looping through the repeat on success. So although the repeat on success can be useful, I would be very wary of it. It can lead you into all sorts of difficulties if you're not paying attention. Again, the time to come out was about halfway round. I'm just going to let this go, see if anything else looks like it might be coming in, and then I might consider deleting or cancelling these bets here so that they don't loop round anymore. But it looks like Thank You Blue is fairly dominant. Might catch it now. Right, but you see how it's going round again for another one? And that's the issue that you have to be aware of with the repeat on success. If you let it go too far into the race, you may find you getting involved in the market again when you don't really want to. Whereas if I had cancelled all when I was talking about cancel all, that loop would have stopped, because the offset bet was no longer there, which would cause the repeat on success loop to go round its next count, which put in another trade on Thank You Blue, by which time it was too late. So be wary of the repeat on success option. It can be useful, but you need to keep an eye on it and be ready to cancel all when things look like they might be getting out of hand, because you may end up with additional trades being put into the market, after you wanted them to go in. Right, let's see if Clonmel started, so we'll nip on to Newbury. Okay, off and running at Newbury, and to show you another variation on a theme, what I'm going to do in this case is reduce my filler kill to 5 seconds, reduce my offset to 1, but increase my repeat count to 10. And I'm going to enter the market much closer to the front of the market. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm not going to go back in to any of these runners once the repeat on success trading loop has been cancelled, either completely, in other words it's gone through the whole list, or the killer fill has sorted it out. So you'll actually see here we've actually only got one open trade, two open trades on Theatre Man and Scrum Diddy. So those are the only two that are left that are going to carry on looping through 10 times. Now of course you could go back in if you so wish. I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it on these two runners. You'll see that Theatre Man there just timed out via the 5-second killer fill. So the only thing that we've got live at the moment is Scrum Diddly. And if he goes up to 4.8, that will close out this particular loop of the trade, and it will implement another one. Keep in mind that each of these trades is entered to the market at the same odds value. It doesn't change. So if an offset is taken and the market carries on increasing in value, the subsequent trade that goes in at the original odds will not be taken. Now it's important, if you're using this particular method, when you've set up the repeat on success count, it's not quite so evident, to be honest, because I've reduced the killer fill, but if that was a little bit higher, we'd have many more on the go. So you really want to be thinking about hovering over the cancel all. But at this stage in this race, you're free to let this thing carry on looping round. And if it carries all the way through 10 loops, it'll just stop. No harm done. But of course you can get out at any time, cancel it by clicking on the cancel all button, then you can green up or just let it run as a lay. So I'm not even halfway around yet. It's a good 6.5 minute race, this one. You can get an indication of how many trades are left by if you go to the trading bets tab. Which one was it? That was Scrum Diddly, wasn't it? You'll see here all the trades that are going in on that runner. And it looks like it's finished them all. So that's us, done and dusted. I can green up at that at halfway through the race, assuming that it gets matched, of course. There we go. So we've got 190 across the board. Okay, there's one other thing it's worthwhile showing you, so we'll do that in the next race at Ludlow. Right, on to the next variation, and for this what I'm going to do is increase the number of lay points I've got to play with. So let's just increase that a little bit. What I'm going to do is remove the filler kill, but keep the offset to 1 and the repeat out to 10. And I'm going to go away down here and stick in my lays. And I'm just going to sit back and wait. Okay, so my repeating success is still 10, so that's going to carry on looping round as and when, excuse me. And by asking for odds much lower down, you need to either remove filler kill or indeed increase it to give the market time to actually get down to the point where you're asking for your lays to be taken. But with the filler kill removed, you're always going to have lays sitting in the market, so you mustn't go back in and get involved unless, of course, the repeat on success has looped round every single count. But generally speaking, that's not going to happen, and so you need to hover over the cancel all option and get ready to cancel as and when. Now, because I'm asking for odds significantly lower than the active part of the market, the front end of the market, you may find that some of your runners that you've selected, the lays on them never get taken. And that's okay. This race, actually, the way it's going, it reminds me that generally speaking, I wouldn't use this on novice races. It so often happens that the favourite in a novice race tends to dominate, and that's what we're kind of seeing in this race as well. So you'll see we haven't actually had any more trades being implemented as yet, mainly because the tighten your belt has shortened so much and everything else hasn't. So we're coming around to about halfway. This is the point to get out and accept the loss. But for the sake of the video, I'm going to let this run a little bit longer. I'm going to think about cancelling my bets shortly though. And hopefully one of these other runners will come in enough for me to be able to trade out. Even if tighten your belt increases to 1.82 and the offset is taken, of course that's going to trigger another lay, and the lay will only be one tick away from 1.82, and so it's likely to get taken fairly quickly, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm actually going to cancel all now. So that gets rid of any outstanding lays or any outstanding unmatched offsets. I'm going to sit around for a little while to see if tighten your belts drifts a little bit more, but we're going to take the hit on this particular one. What I'm trying to show you in this video, albeit on some of the races not very successfully, because I'm too busy nattering, is that this technique can be used in a whole variety of different ways. And it's really up to yourself to play around, find out what you find most comfortable, and take it from there. Okay, it looks like the favourite's going to carry on dominating this race. So we'll get ready just to bail out, I think. As I say, I don't have any commentary on, so I don't really know what's happening, but just guessing from the odds that are on the go there. Yeah, we'll just see if we can get out for a little bit less than the £9 there. So not a particularly successful option that I did there, but that's another variation that you can use. But as I say, I've not done this for over a year, so I'm obviously lacking practice as well. But once you practice it, you quickly learn the types of races that you might not want to get involved in. I'm getting involved in every single race here, but generally speaking, low price, where there's low price favourites, those generally speaking aren't the best bets for a variety of reasons. First of all, their odds tend not to increase unless they're running poorly or clattering fences. They tend not to drift enough, generally speaking. In other words, they tend to hog the market, that's what I'm trying to say. And also, if a favourite, a clear favourite like that, is running badly, and more particularly if they hit a fence or fall, their odds shoot out obviously, but everything else comes shooting in significantly, and consequently you may find that you've got lots of lays there and it's difficult to get out again. But again, really the purpose of that exercise was to let you see some of the other settings that you can play around with to see what you're happy with. Right, there's one other tiny thing I want to show you. And for this, what we're going to do is change the lay stake. We're going to split it up. I'm going to split it up into 2, so I'm just going to change that to 5, but you can split it up into more. So for example, if I was using a £100 lay stake, I might want to consider changing it to 25. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put in 2 trades on each horse at different odds, so that the total liability on that runner is still our overall £10, if you understand me. So again, we'll pause the video and wait for the start of this race. Okay, for the last demonstration, I wanted to show you something else where we put in multiple lays on the one on each runner, where the total liability on each runner is still going to be the same. So I've split my lay stake to 5, so I've got 2 bets on each to go. For this though, I'm going to put the settings back to perhaps more sensible levels. So we'll change killer fill to 10, change repeater count to 3, and change the offset back to 3. Now in this, what we're going to do is choose 2 columns within our grid to go down. So let's stick in a set of bets, and I'm going to go down every one of them, and then go down another column further down, and so we've got 2 sets of lays for each horse. And we'll see which ones get taken. So we've actually only got 1 left, and that's on Chris's Escape. Now we're not even quarter of the way through this race, so I think it's worthwhile going back in on the other runners, doing the same again, and see if any of those get taken. Now this is what you'll find with a longer race. In the first half, you don't get a huge amount of improvement, so you may find it useful to actually increase your killer fill in this length of race. So again, we've got 2 now, dragon fruit, and there's a tiny little bit left on the outside of there, so we'll just leave that as it is and then go into the others. And again, where you put them doesn't really matter, as long as you only put 1 each on each runner. So the maximum liability will be £10 on any one runner. But again, you just sit back and let that do its thing. But it comes to a point, certainly as you're approaching halfway, where you won't go back in again, and you'll just let that carry on looping around on the remaining runners that have open positions. Keep in mind, of course, that any time you can cancel, you can trade out at any point you like. Now I do have a couple of automation strategy files that essentially does this type of thing. I don't have them loaded on this computer though, so I can't show you them today, so I might do a separate video. Although I have to say that I prefer doing this technique on the few occasions that I do it. I prefer to do it manually. I think you have more flexibility in terms of exit points and how you handle things if you do it manually than trying to implement this automatically. But yeah, as I say, I'll rake out those strategy files and I'll do another video on the automation version and let you see that. But that's not likely to happen until next week sometime. So once again, we're getting about halfway. Given that this is a 3-mile, 3-furlong race, you can see there we've still got 3.5 minutes or so. So there's no harm in letting this run a little bit longer. Dragon Fruit's looking to get out at 2.92 at its lowest and 3 for the other bet. We've hit our target profit area momentarily. So it's worthwhile just looking to see how this goes. This one in Crix's Escape, that's not going to get matched again. It's looking up at 4.46, so that's not going to get matched until later on in the race. You can actually come out of that individually, of course. But I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking about getting out anyway, just by cancelling everything and greening up. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. We'll just cancel that, take the ATP. There we go. And that's it. Okay, so as the bishop said to the actress, this is a little bit longer than normal, but I'm going to finish it there. Not the best of demonstrations, simply because, as I say, I easily get distracted when I'm recording videos live, which is why I do it in simulation mode. So there was a couple of races there where I should have got out a lot earlier than I did. But that's not the purpose of the video. The video is there to actually show you the various options available to you if you wish to employ this type of technique. As I said earlier, it is not a vast money winner. It's there really just to drip feed and slowly build up your bank. And although I'm using stakes of £10, if you're using £50 or so, that can, over a period of a day, that can be quite useful. But if you have another strategy that is more profitable, use that. That's what I would suggest you do. But certainly, by all means, you can try a couple of techniques here, but I would stay away from sprint races initially, especially sprint races in the all weather. And also be careful of races, although I've done some today and wound up losing, be careful of races where there's short price favourites. So specifically novice races in particular, because they tend to hog the market during the race. So be wary of those as well. Okay guys, we shall finish it there. Thank you very much for your patience. I'll speak to you later. Cheers.